You are listening to Leading the Factory Forward with your host, Lynn Friest. We share interviews with manufacturing experts and strategies for embracing the digital future, recruiting a new workforce, finding new business. Lynn is an advanced manufacturing strategist and leadership consultant who is on a mission to show manufacturing leaders how to improve their current operations while preparing for a digital future. And here's your host, Lynn Friest.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Leading the Factory Forward. Today we're on episode 47, and it's going to be part 5 of Weathering the Current Storm. Some of my thoughts on what might be helpful to you as manufacturing leaders, work your way through this pandemic that we're facing. Again, just in general, in this podcast, we're here to help you create a compelling future for yourself, your teams, and your organization, even though this may be especially trying times to be doing that. Again, this is the 5th episode, and again, trying to share ideas. These are how I see things at the time of the recording, and obviously things can change rather rapidly. So once again, I want to assure you I'm not a medical or a government expert, and nor am I a financial expert. But I want to offer some thoughts onto how you as a manufacturing leader might think and approach this trying time. The overall framework I've been talking around is I feel there's going to be 3 phases to moving forward. The current phase, the phase we're in right now, is survive and support. Just keep your business in business or suspend it, pause it, whatever it may take, and then support. Support yourself, your family, your employees, your suppliers, even your bankers. Be connected to all these people, even during this time when little activity may be going on in your factory. The second phase will be learn and plan your recovery. And some of that is what I'll be talking about today. Because at this point, you may have had at least some clarity. I know we can't have certainty, but you've found some clarity on what maybe can be next step for the survive and support phase. So it's now time to start looking forward and planning what your recovery might look like and also what you might need to learn to do your recovery. And of course, the final piece that'll come later in the year is engaging in the rebuilding and recovery of your business. So that'll happen later. And again, we'll just have to be patient and wait for some of that to come forward. So in this episode, there's going to be 2 phases, just like in the last one. We'll talk about some of the internal work that you can do right now. And then I'll have a few ideas for you to consider just as a leader and how you approach your leadership during this challenging time. So first, on the internal work, I think it's time that you could spend some time learning lean, as it were. What are the things that you could do to improve your current operations or the operations you may need to have in the future? And for that, I really highly recommend you go to a website by the name of Paul Akers, and links to his website will be in there. He wrote a book. He's written several books, but the first one was 2-Second Lean. And it was about creating a fun, lean culture. And that book has even now been translated into 15 languages. But again, if you go to the link in the show notes, it'll take you to a whole series of very short videos. Because his idea was, if I have everybody saving 2 seconds every day, that's a tremendous amount of operational improvement by the end of a year. But again, it's simple stuff, how to rearrange your toolbox, how to do some paperwork, simplification, those kinds of things. And I think during this time may be a good time for you to just think about those. In addition, I guess I'd recommend you share the website with your employees or anyone else that you come in contact with. Again, during these times of pause right now, it may be useful to go out and just do some learning. And these short videos and stuff that he has available are just fantastic, I think. Another thing, he has a podcast. It's called The American Innovator. Now, he covers a wide range of topics. It's not just, he started in manufacturing, but now he covers healthcare. He covers personal development. So it's just a fascinating thing. And I, again, highly recommend you go visit the podcast homepage and just kind of browse through some of the episodes to see what might be helpful for you. The next thing I would recommend is start thinking about the post-COVID-19 operations. What might they look like? We're starting to see stuff in the paper and on the news about how they're going to reopen things. So some of it might be just as we're walking through your factory and think about, okay, how could I enable social distancing? Is it possible for me to alter shifts so that not everybody troops in and out at the same time during the day? If it's going to be a requirement that I take people's temperatures each day, how is that going to happen? Should I be contacting any medical people that help me in my business today to ask them how they would recommend it? Be thinking about it and maybe reaching out to people, whether it be your Chamber of Commerce or some other industry place, and say, how would I as a manufacturer actually implement some of these things? And then the piece that's probably going on right now for many businesses, remote workers. And it could be that, again, during a partial reopening of the economy, they may need to remain remote workers. So just think about how you could do that. It could be right now you actually have them on layoff or something like that, but it could be that you need these people, but you don't necessarily need to have them in the office to resume your operations. So be considering about what remote work you're doing or could be doing in the future. Then I'd say just, again, this whole concept of lean, think about what kind of lean operations could you have? And some of this you get right back down to the basics of what's your personal experience as a leader? What are your pain points? What in the past has frustrated you every day? What eats up time every day in your operations? So what are the things that you already know are kind of a hassle today? And is there anything you could rethink? Because you're going to have to rethink a lot of operations anyway. So now is also a time to think about how could I do something maybe differently? And along with that, think about what you want to add to your operations. It may be a new technology, or again, it may just be new processes. But with that, what skills might you or your people need to acquire? So if it's a new way of doing a time card, or if it's implementing QuickBooks or something like that, or an ERP system, just start thinking through what would it take for both me and my employees to be able to execute this new activity. Or likewise, if you think you need to redo your internal flow of materials or something like that, does somebody need to know different skills, different tools, different operations? And if you have specific skills in mind, like how to use QuickBooks or how to use an ERP system, I really suggest you go out and search on YouTube. It's a marvelous search engine, and it's just amazing the number of things that people have posted out there as far as how-to videos and how-to examples of all kinds of different things in the world. So if you get a little creative in your search as to what you're looking for, you'd be surprised at what you can find. As in always, I always believe video is a great teaching tool. Then the last thing I actually mentioned in the last podcast, but I'll keep mentioning it because it still is very important, and that is interview your customers and suppliers, and also interview your employees. But here I'm thinking about your customers and suppliers. How are they picturing what they're going to do going forward? How has things changed for them? Do they need something different from you in terms of products or even maybe additional services? Or is there something around the timing of activities? Or will a supplier only be able to come up to half speed? And that has an implication that you need to let your customers know you can only supply half of what you had in the past. So this whole idea of at least talking to people about what their current thinking is, always recognizing that we're working with the best information we have today, and it could easily be changed tomorrow. But especially in terms of, I think, of services, it might be interesting. You know, people would really like some help on some things. So if you can offer them not only your products, but some help in doing something else in their business, that may be a way to build value as well as build business for you moving forward. And likewise, your suppliers, maybe there's something that you can take on, or maybe there's something you need to ask them to do. But the whole idea of having these conversations, but maybe before we're actually back in full operation, might be helpful. Again, one, to build the relationships with your customers, suppliers, and employees. And two, just to have a larger group of people thinking about what could happen next. So the last thing is going to be thoughts about you as a leader. And this short piece comes from work that I saw done by Dr. Matthew Lippincott, who is a Chief Solutions Officer at Goldman Emotional Intelligence Group. And these are basically the broad concepts of emotional intelligence with a few questions that you could use as a leader. So the first thing they talk about is self-awareness. You know, are you aware of how you're thinking and feeling and doing things? And some of this is if you feel stuck, well, what's going on? Why do you feel stuck? Can you explore that for yourself? And then it moves into an arena of self-management. Okay, once you're aware that, you know what, I just yelled at somebody, it probably wasn't the best idea in the whole world. Can I think of a way to, do that differently, act more responsibly or more appropriately next time? And also a question that comes up in self-management is, do others understand my intent? I may have thought through something completely and I gave people a brief understanding or explanation of it, but did they really understand it? And again, since we can't always say we're acting with certainty, we're only trying to provide clarity. Do they understand my overall intent? That's important in today's world because things will change and change rapidly. But if you can convey to your people or your customers or suppliers your overall intent, that'll help them understand the changes and how they might react to them. Then there's the next phase of social awareness. This is about, am I perceptive to what's going on with others out there? And the basic question there is, what do others need? Do I have any feel for that? I may have to spend some time clarifying what I need for myself, but also am I spending some time understanding what are the needs for others? People may have obviously a great amount of fear right now, but can you help them explain how you think you can bring them back to work safely? And this is what your intent is, and this is how we're going to work together to try to do that so that you can work safely, or that we need to ask you to work remotely, and some people will have to work in the office. Those kinds of things. Do you know what others need? Again, you may not be able to fulfill everything they need, but at least you'll have an understanding of it. Then finally, which this all weaves together, is the piece around relationship management. And for a leader, a lot of it is, how do I build trust? Why do people trust me? Why should people trust me? How do I act in a trustworthy manner? So how do I build trust with people? A lot of that it's not as much about speaking as I think you build trust by listening. So it's one of those things where you actually build trust by not saying as much in many cases. It's all about, have you listened to the people, what they need, what they want? And then again, sharing your intent, even though you can't provide certainty as to what happens next. Here's the overall ideas that I know at this time, and we're going to figure this all out together. And then the last step is some concrete things. How do I work more effectively with others? It could be that I need to let people take more initiative on their own. It may be I need to ask people, could they learn this new skill or activity? Could they do something a little differently moving forward? But how do you, again, create and help facilitate teamwork, both with your employees, with each other, and with you? So that concludes this part of our series. Now, I'm not sure what our topic will be for next week, but we'll do our best and let you know. Again, I encourage you to visit my website, download the PDFs at the bottom of the podcast episode, and then you can use those as a tool to capture any notes as you start your exploration of the concepts that we shared in this episode. So once again, be safe, be well, and keep leading your factory forward. See you next time.